Mr. Schnorman is a distinguished trial attorney, author, and lecturer. Each week, Lawline will bring you the most knowledgeable experts in the field of law today. And now, we introduce our guests and our host, Alan Schnorman.
Welcome to Lawline. Imagine what it must be like to run one of the largest court systems in the country. As Chief Administrative Judge of the State of New York, Jonathan Lippman has what some may consider a Herculean task in making sure the courts run efficiently. Today we'll talk to him and find out about some of the improvements he has recently instituted. Hello, Judge Lippman.
Good day. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, Judge, what's the innovative task you're doing? What do you want to achieve? I mean, you've been sitting now well over a year. We had you on a year ago, and you had a lot of goals. How did it work out?
Well, everything is going very well. We really are in a time of record caseloads. The complexity of the cases that we handle is greater than ever because of new legislation that's come down in various areas. And through it all, we're doing many, many innovative things that recognize that the court system has to have new ways to treat cases. And all cases are not the same. And that if you just take one case after another and business as usual, they multiply. And that we have to find new ways to be more efficient and more productive.
A month doesn't go by that I've been seeing statistics now that crime is down here, and crime is down nationally, and crime is down in metropolitan New York. How has that affected the court system?
There is a changing landscape of criminal justice, and while felonies in the court system have evened off and leveled off in the last year, misdemeanor cases, domestic violence cases, quality of life cases in what we call the local criminal courts in New York City, the criminal court of the city of New York, are skyrocketing. So our total filings are greater than ever. It's just the way they're configured is different than it used to be.
That's very interesting. Now, you talk about local courts. I know you instituted a local court system. What was that about?
You mean the community court is what you're talking about. Yes, we have, and that's part of our criminal justice program in general, and the local courts in that regard is meant to bring justice back to the communities. And we instituted, particularly in Manhattan, in the community court, we have instituted a program where the community has played a role in developing the court, in how it works, and being a part of it, and it's been very successful. What it basically deals with is quality of life crimes like graffiti, fare jumping, doing things that affect the people in the area, and a lot of it feeds off of drugs. And what we're doing is we're bringing people in and giving them as their sentences community service and trying to provide treatment for them, so if drugs are at the cause of it, they can get off it and not be habitual criminals.
Judge, as a citizen of metropolitan New York, I feel that graffiti is down, that the quality of life crimes, I don't see it as much. But you tell me you see it more and more now?
No, I agree with you, it's down, and the reason why it's down, is that you don't see the effects of it, is the executive, the police, are arresting people, bringing them into the courts, and we're dealing with it, and that serves as a deterrent. But remember, the reason why you're seeing less of it is there are more arrests and more cases coming into the court, so people then are looking at it and saying, well, I'm not going to do that because there's a punishment that goes with it. So that's what's happening. We're dealing with the problem, and we feel that we're very much contributing to this decline in crime in the courts.
Now, I saw one statistic said that you handle in the courts of New York State in one day more cases than the federal system handles in a year.
That's right, and there's no comparison. I mean, there is just we have judges who have 2,000 cases, 2,500 cases, and in the federal court, you have a very limited caseload for each individual judge.
On the criminal end, how are we doing as far as speedy trial?
We're doing better than we were. What's happening is, there are different constitutional guarantees in terms of the criminal process. Arrest to arraignment is supposed to be done within 24 hours, and we are hovering at about that mark. With all these increases in arrests, it's hard to maintain that level. We don't have enough judges to do it as quickly as we'd like, but we're working with the police department, working with the other partners in the process, the prosecution prosecution and defense, we have been able to move down the time. Also, in terms of moving cases along and going through in a speedy process, we're working in many counties, and Brooklyn is an example. We have a program, an expedited case processing program, where cases move in each part of the case process within certain defined time frames and fixed dates.
That's civil?
That's criminal.
Oh, it's criminal.
And that works, and it has moved the process. It's a program that we've had in conjunction with the City of New York and District Attorney Hines in Kings County.
Now, last year you came on and you gave me your wish list, what you would like to achieve. How about now? What's your wish list for 1997?
My wish list for 1997 is that we maintain a strong judiciary that are doing innovative and new things to meet the kind of caseloads that we have. And our wish list is to follow through on so many of the programs that we've instituted: drug treatment courts, domestic violence courts, differentiated case management on the civil side, specialized treatment of matrimonial cases, to do the things that we need on the case processing side to be productive and efficient as judges, and to show the public and the citizens who really pays our way, who support the courts, that we are accountable, that we are responsible, that we are public servants, and that we do what we do in a very productive and efficient way. And that's what this court system is about: innovative, modern, meeting rising caseloads in a way that serves the public.
Judge, that sounds wonderful on one side of the ledger, but on the other side of the ledger we have executive politicians who periodically, you read in the newspaper, and they go right on in front of the television cameras, and they criticize judges with decisions that may very well be in their discretion.
Right.
How do you counter that?
Look, the most important thing we have is to be an independent judiciary, but our best guarantee of being independent is to be productive, efficient, and accountable. We, as you know, Alan, because of ethical constraints, can't talk about individual cases, can't answer that kind of criticism, can't answer when you have this tabloid treatment of cases in the tabloids in New York City. But what we can do is, number one, be productive, be efficient, be fair. Number two, we have to educate the public about what we do and what our role is in society, and let them understand that it is the courts that is the ultimate protector of everybody's rights and liberties. And that's the way we answer, not as politicians, not as public officials, but as judges and as a judiciary dedicated to our constitutional oaths and to our function. That's the guarantor of judicial independence. And finding that right balance, doing so that we can be free of the latest public opinion polls or the latest clamor for one thing or the other, deciding cases on the law, educating the public about what we do, being clear about what we do is our best defense.
I agree with that, Judge, but that's the ideal environment. We live in a political society where politicians, by their very nature, if they find an issue...
Alan, but if a politician or a public official feels that the public interest is at risk, they should be able to criticize the courts. We don't say that the courts are sacrosanct and that judges are immune from criticism. The only thing that we have any problem with is if it's unfair criticism, if it's criticism that's out of context, if it's criticism that's uninformed. But, you know, the court system is very much a part of the public fabric of society. And the reason why public officials, newspapers, lawyers, anyone are able to say what they say in terms of what we do, good, bad, or indifferent, is because you have the courts to protect people's rights. You know, the worst critic of the court system, when that person is aggrieved, they come to one place. They come to the courts because they know that is the one place where they can get a fair, impartial decision that isn't based on let's take a poll on it and see what most people think. We are, by constitutional design, apart from the fray. We're not public officials. They have their duties and responsibilities, and you know, if they feel the public interest is at risk, they should by all means give their opinion. We perform how we speak is through our decisions. I think there is a role for judges, and that role is not only doing what they do and staying committed and following the law, but making their decisions clear so people understand what they do. And there's a role for the bar, Alan. People like you who are in the bar, since we, by ethical constraints, are not able to talk about cases, you can talk out and be the defenders of the judiciary where it's necessary, and the bar has taken on that role with vigor and enthusiasm.
Well, give me your opinion on this, where you have a political executive, the governor of our state, calls for the removal of a judge, and in fact, if he says, and if the system that we have in place doesn't work, I myself will remove him through the legislature. Or I'll take it on myself.
Look, I would not criticize the governor of the state. We don't go in and do political issues, what the governor says, what we say. But what I will say is, when that issue came up, there was a very serious issue of whether that case should go to the Judicial Conduct Commission. And we certainly were in close touch with the governor's office during that period. And the end result was that the governor agreed that the case should go to the Judicial Conduct Commission, and that's where it'll be determined, and not, in the political process. That's Judge Duckman, and that case is presently pending, and I can't talk about the outcome of that case or the particulars of it, but I can say that there was a lot of public discussion about that case. But in the end, everyone recognized, public officials in all three branches of government, that case belonged in the Judicial Conduct Commission. That's where it is. That's where it's being resolved. And I think that's where it should be resolved.
Of course, but the only thing is, you manage over 3,000 judges. Each one is an individual.
Yes.
And each one, especially here in New York metropolitan area, makes hundreds of decisions.
Yep.
The sheer volume.
Right.
Of every day, some criminal parts, and so you go in and they're hanging from the chandelier.
Right.
And each case requires a decision.
The overwhelming number of cases are handled by judges with skill and sensitivity and expertise. We handle 4 million cases a year, or close to it, in the New York State court system. Judges are not perfect. Every decision they make isn't perfect. There are appellate processes by which people can appeal, or lawyers can appeal for their clients, a judge's decision, and that's the process. If there is misconduct, there is a Judicial Conduct Commission to handle it. That's our system. That's our constitutional design. But the most important thing for judges to do is to understand, which they do, that they decide cases as a matter of law. They don't decide it on what the latest newspaper editorial is, what the a public official says, what they decided on the law. Judges are not immune from hearing these things. They hear them. Their job is to impartially decide the case on the law.
Now, Judge, what we're talking about here is the Commission on Judicial Conduct.
Right.
Are you in favor of opening these meetings up, these hearings up, which are now closed doors?
Yes.
You are.
Chief Judge Kaye and I have both been vocal in our support of opening up the process for the judicial conduct proceedings.
So you could have media in there and reporters could take notes?
Right, because we believe that putting sunshine on the process promotes public confidence in the courts and the judiciary, and it's not good to have closed hearings where people don't know what's happening. You have speculation, instead of facts. And we think that it's helpful for those proceedings to be open for the public to hear it.
How do the judges' associations feel on that? Are they in favor as well?
There are mixed feelings on it. I think within the judicial complement, there are many judges who are in favor of open proceedings, and there are some who feel that they'd rather have it closed. Now, our position institutionally is we think it's a good thing. We think it promotes confidence in the court.
Now, the same thing with the bar. When a lawyer gets in trouble, the meetings are also secret. How do you feel about those? We
will be submitting legislation this year to open up those proceedings for the same reason. We think it promotes confidence in the profession, and the facts show that when cases actually go to hearing after charges are brought, in most cases there is an ultimate discipline that takes place, and then it becomes public anyway.
Okay. Now, we have over 3,000 judges in the state of New York, and they are selected in many, many different ways. What's your position? How would you like judges selected?
Institutionally, the court system is for merit selection.
Merit selection means?
Means that it's not by election, it's by, there are screening panels that look at the merit of a person's credentials, and then it's appointed. I will say this, that is our institutional position and always has been. I do feel that our present mixed system of certain judges are elected, certain judges are appointed, works well. I think in an ideal system, if you had a totally merit process that was the absolute optimal merit selection system, I think everyone agreed, gee, merit selection would be better. I think in real life, that merit selection systems aren't perfect either. There are some systems that work very well. For instance, I think the Court of Appeals process works very well. But I think that certainly, if you look at our process, some elected, some appointed, it works well.
I must say that we've had Denny Farrell, who is the county leader here in Manhattan. We've had Clarence Norman, who's the county leader in Kings. And they feel if more merit selection would be detrimental because that takes away the people. I think from the process, and they feel it's almost discriminatory against the people's wishes.
I think there's a good argument that can be made that the electoral system, particularly now where you have minorities who weren't always in the forefront of the political leadership, now having those political leadership posts, so saying now that we have the vote, now you're going to take away the electoral system.
That's exactly the point they brought up.
And I think that, again, while conceptually, if everything was perfect, a merit selection total system might work very well, I think our system does well. This mixed elected appointed.
Keep it as it is.
I take your advice seriously, and we'll take it under advisement.
We got to take a break now. You're watching Lawline. I'm Alan Schnorman, your host. Stay with us.
Someone they don't know a gift. They do it because this gift saves lives. And the need for it is desperate. We need over 20,000 people to give this precious gift every day. Please give blood. There's a life to be saved right now. Call the American Red Cross at 1-800-GIVE-LIFE.
They want to get me, I'm going to be ready to get them.
They just shoot. They don't care who gets in the way.
I want to be respected. Just gets me respect, know what I'm saying?
I'm afraid to walk to school. Okay?
Yeah, I might die. Everybody dies.
Kids shooting, kids getting shot. They're all victims of gun violence. The killing won't stop unless you help stop it. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT for free information. Not one more lost life. Not one more grieving family. Not one more.
I don't want to die.
Hello, you're watching Lawline. Today we're talking about the New York State court system. We're honored to have the Chief Administrative Judge, Jonathan Lippman. Judge Lippman, the jury system has changed dramatically under your administration. Right now you can go into a jury room and you see lawyers, doctors, and judges. And last week we saw the governor of the state of New York.
It has been a remarkable change, and the juror, anyone who works in the courts, who is kind of lawyers, judges, you can obviously see people who have never been called to jury service in their life. You not only see the governor of New York, you have the chief judge of the state of New York has served.
And yourself
You'll have
as well.
The chief administrative judge. You have people from all walks of life, and I think it works.
Okay, but the only thing I'd like to bring out and comment is the whole system is based on a jury of one's peers.
Yes, and this is a more representative jury
and
of one's
peers. And
peers.
if I have a judge sitting and as a juror, and a judge sitting as the one who's supposed to tell me what the law is that really a system of my peers?
Let me tell you, I think it really can work, and it can be a system of your peers. And in certain states in this country, they've had this system for a long time, and it works. And judges sit, and lawyers sit, and governors sit, and it works. My point to you is, I think it can work. Even if that judge or that lawyer or that governor is excused from jury service because the lawyers don't pick them to serve on the jury, the perception of fairness by having everyone served is so important that even recognizing the risk that you're pointing out, that someone may have a greater influence on the jury than the next juror by their role.
Of course.
The perception of fairness, people want to serve now because they think the system is fair, it's open, everyone is treated the same. That's wonderful in terms of having a representative group of your peers. And I think we're getting more representative jurors and jurors who are more open to what's happening. And I think it's healthy to have the governor and the chief judge and everybody else serve, whether they actually get on a jury or not. And on the occasional time when they do get on, I don't think there's a problem, and I think that judge or that lawyer is going to be extra careful not to say or do anything that would in any way cause a problem.
All the lawyers and judges out there who are sitting on juries, I hope you listen to that.
I'm sure they're listening, and I'm sure that they know that's what they should be
I
doing.
know last year you told me you were going to make jury service user-friendly. Has that occurred?
It has occurred to an extent that we could never have imagined. And that doesn't mean that it can't get better and that this isn't a work in progress. It certainly isn't. There's much room for improvement. Jurors are paid more as of February 15.
Always nice.
Right? The daily pay has gone up to $27.50. Court employees are given educational courses about dealing with jurors and knowing that they're the most important people in the system and treating them right. Juror term of service is shorter. Jurors are called less often, and when they come, they serve for shorter periods. There are more amenities in the juror rooms. This really is a new jury system and a new court system.
You brought up the word rooms. The court system for years in metropolitan New York has not been the best.
Right.
I have just finished a trial in Westchester County Federal Court. You walk in, it's a brand new facility. I mean, it's magnificent. It adds respect. Everybody talks in low terms. It adds respect for the court, for the system. And the same day, if you go to another courthouse, it's totally different in the state system.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the difference is striking. However, we are making progress, and there's a capital plan in New York City to build courthouses, and it's really starting to take hold, and you're going to see new courthouses popping up in the city. You have a new Bronx Housing Court, which will be opening soon. You have a new Queens Civil Court. There are improvements to each of the buildings. We are working very well with the city on this plan. It is going 100 times better than it was a few years ago, and we believe that we're going in the right direction. And to be sure, the facilities in New York often work exactly as you say in the city, that take away from the respect for the courts and for what happens in the courts. But we think that there's been a vast improvement, and we have every expectation that it's going to continue to improve.
The New York Law Journal just had an article that they felt there was a severe shortage of criminal court judges.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I feel there's a very severe shortage of criminal court judges, and we've been working with all the different parts of the system to get a new law passed with more criminal court judges. We've been working closely with District Attorney Morgenthau in Manhattan, with the Senate and the Assembly up in Albany, with the defense. All of them are working together to get more judges, and the caseloads justify it. So there is a need.
So that's a wish list. That's part of
It's
your
not only a wish list, I think it's a wish list that can and should be a reality. Criminal court judges have probably the highest caseloads in the country, and you can't take 5 minutes to handle a criminal court case. This is a deliberative process, and that's why we need more judges, to make it deliberative, judicial. We have to think about what we're doing. This isn't mass production.
If the Assembly, if the legislatures were out there watching this show, and you had the ability to talk to assemblymen and women, state senators, what would you tell them? What legislation do you want to enhance the system?
Number one, we do need more judges.
That we got.
Number two, I think that we do need a program of further reforms in the jury system. Modifying
Such as what?
peremptory challenges on the criminal side, I think, is extremely important. Ending mandatory sequestration, even in more limited areas that we have now.
Isn't that a political issue?
It's a juror issue. It's a jury issue. Making the process more efficient in not wasting the state's money is an issue that affects everybody, and we are proposing that
The
legislation.
jurors should not be sequestrated, as they are now
I
in
think it
criminal
should be
cases.
up to the discretion of the judge. And certainly you have in the federal courts, for instance, many cases with very serious crimes where jurors go home every night, and we have, in the simplest criminal cases, often have juries sequestered. It's not fair to the jurors involved, and it's not cost effective.
Is it mandatory now that jurors be sequestrated in criminal cases?
In A felonies and violent B and C felonies. That's the most serious criminal cases. And we think even in those cases, it should be up to the discretion of the judge. Look at the federal courts. In the most serious crimes, those jurors go home
While we're on
every
the
night.
topic, a former chief judge of the state of New York on grand juries said a grand jury would indict a ham sandwich. That was his favorite saying. What do you think about that grand jury system?
I think the grand jury system can have room for improvement. We aren't at this point asking for an overhaul of the grand jury system. In some regards, it's antiquated. In other regards, I understand how it can be a valuable part of the process. We're taking a good look at that again.
Merger of the courts, where any judge could sit on any type of trial. A family court judge could sit on a civil trial, and a Supreme Court judge could sit on a family court trial.
We're for it. We've been for it for years, and we're willing to do whatever interim steps are necessary to get that passed so that we can have more flexibility merger. So we can get more flexibility in the way we handle cases, not be limited in the types of cases that judges can handle. And we think progress can be made in that regard, even if there's not total merger of the system. And we are looking at right now what we can do to at least take interim steps in that direction.
The New York Law Journal had an article, actually had a series of letters on acting Supreme Court judges from the civil court who are appointed by, I assume, by you.
By me, yeah.
By you, to act as Supreme Court judges, and that they felt they were being unfairly looked at.
Well, I don't feel that way at all. I think that the system, as I indicated to you earlier, has a responsibility to be accountable and responsible to the public. And in these particular appointments, they are discretionary appointments that I make, elevating judges to the highest courts. They're promotions. They get a salary increase for that purpose. I think it's appropriate, and it's part of my constitutional responsibilities to look at the performance of judges and make sure that the judges who are promoted on a discretionary basis are done. It's done on the basis of performance, and that's not in a vacuum. We have a responsibility for all our judges, administrators, non-judicial people, to be accountable. So we're not looking at just acting judges, but there's a threshold issue. When you're elected to the Supreme Court, you serve in the Supreme Court by the Constitution. Here, I'm making a discretionary appointment, and because of that, I think it's appropriate on a yearly basis to review performance and make sure the best people are promoted.
Just the comment on that, of course, was that would take somewhat of the discretion that a court judge has, that they may have to decide cases quicker, or they may have to move their calendars quicker.
We will not be dealing with their adjudicative decision, the decision on a case, but they have to be productive and efficient and meet our responsibility as public servants.
And with that, thank you very much, Jonathan Littman, Chief Administrative Judge of the State of New York, for once more coming on Lawline.
Thank you, Alan.
And as always, this is Alan Schnorman. Thank you for watching Lawline.
You have been watching Lawline with your host, New York trial attorney Alan Schnorman. Mr. Schnorman will be back with you next week at the same time. If you have any questions about this week's program, please write to Lawline, 63 Wall Street, New York, New York, 10005, or call area code 212-432-9111. This program is made possible by the New York...